side of the state, around the Detroit area, and she has written a co-author book with Dr. Gerald Present. I'm going to introduce B.R. Bates. She's going to come up and talk to you about her book on true crime. Hey, welcome.
And that was Mr. John Eric Armstrong, the subject of the first true crime book that I did, which I brought here with me today, and I collaborated with Dr. Cliff on that book too. And it was such an interesting experience, because if you've ever been to one of the prisons and visited someone, I know that you all have a few different prisons here, at Cotton, you go there, and of course, as a journalist, the most painful part is that I could take nothing with me. No paper to write on, no pencil, no phone, no recording device of any kind. I had to just sit down with this guy and just listen to him try to memorize everything he was telling me. But the thing is, just to back up a little bit, I had first contacted him probably a year or two before that, and I had emailed in the JPay email system for prisoners. And asked and just explained, you know, I'm going to write a book about her case. And I mean, just throwing it out there. And I'd like to talk to him. And he didn't respond to me at first. It took a little coaxing. And then finally I got him to respond. And he said, well, I'll talk to you, but I don't want to talk about the case. He does not discuss the case. And as far as I know, he really doesn't talk about his case to anyone. He does talk to people who write to him, especially females who write to him, and he was willing to talk to a female. And from what I understand in some of the websites that I've seen that deal with what's called murderabilia, you know, letters from serial killers and things that serial killers own, like maybe an object they have in their home or something like that. From what I've seen, he has talked to a number of females over the years, but he does not talk about the case. So I said, okay, that's fine, because if he was not willing to talk about the case, I still was going to do the book, and I still found a tremendous amount of value in just sitting down with him, talking to him, and getting a feel for who he was as a person. That to me was important. So I came here a couple times, sat down with him. It was like a little over an hour, maybe an hour and a half each time, and it was such a crazy experience because, like I said, if you've ever been there, you go to this open meeting room. He is not in maximum security. He's kind of at a minimal level nowadays of cop. And so he meets with someone in the same room with everybody else. And so you go in there and there's other inmates and family members visiting them. And so you're sitting in these plastic chairs, and I'm sitting there next to him, almost touching elbows, and just chatting like he's just somebody I know and I met. And we're talking about growing up and TV shows, and what he does in the prison. He had a couple different jobs in the prison, and just his travels while he was with the Navy, because he was in the U.S. Navy in the 1990s, and he traveled all over the world, so he told me some interesting things about that. And he went to Bahrain, and he remembered all the stuff for sale in Bahrain. He bought a horse statue for his stepdad. He said he remembered you could buy gold chains wound around the spindle. You could just choose the length of chain that you wanted, really good quality, high carat gold that you could buy for inexpensive in Bahrain. And so he told me all kinds of things. And so it was interesting because it's so different than what we would expect. I remember doing research for this book and sitting down in my basement 10 murders in these different courts all over the world. So I would sit there reading a police report of a survivor or whatnot, and reading these really grisly details, and horrific details. And then I get an email pop up, hey, what you doing? I'm doing this, or hi, he maintained friendly email contact with me for a couple of years. And so those two Armstrongs were very, very difficult to reconcile. In fact, when I first came here to Cotton, he looks so much dramatically different now than he did back in the day. I'd seen all kinds of photos of him in his 20s. He was 26 when he was arrested in April 2000. Tall guy, big guy, real big and tall, reddish hair, whatever kind of glasses. And what they gave me at the prison was this tall, thin, bald guy. And I thought, they gave me the wrong guy. I was like, well, they gave me the wrong guy. And then to sit next to him, I truly learned what people I had interviewed told me, that he always struck them. People who knew him in his job in Detroit, in Dearborn Heights actually, people who knew him from the Navy, people described him as the boy next door.
Of course.
And I mean, it's kind of a cliche, it is kind of a cliche. But that really should scare us most of all, is that I think nobody who knew him, including his wife, knew what he was doing. No one.
Is he serving life?
He is maximum life sentences. Yeah. He's been incarcerated since 2001. And he's moved around a little bit. He's been at Cotton for the longest, but he's moved around a little bit too. But, I mean, that's the crazy thing. I've heard a statistic that each person encounters 36 killers over the course of their lifetime.
Oh my God.
Like maybe passing on the sidewalk, or standing next to in an elevator, or maybe seeing an event like this, or a party or something, that you cross paths in some way with 36 killers. And I thought, there's no way. There's just no way. 36? That's ludicrous. But then when I thought about it, I realized, actually, I've known 2 other killers on a personal level. Now, this is not necessarily serial killers, but I knew someone who walked point in Vietnam and was paid to kill. I knew someone who actually killed her husband, and it was a weird situation. It was like inadvertent, if you believe it or not. It was like a misunderstanding, but shot her husband. So, I guess, I don't know, maybe 36 is true. It just still seems ludicrous. But to me, at the heart of all of it is that it's about the psychology. It's about, why does one person choose to cross that line and take human life when we don't do it? We would never do it. What is that? Is that brain chemistry? Is it how he was raised? And I think in the 2 cases I've studied, not just Armstrong, but Benjamin Atkins, who's another pretty well-known serial from Detroit and Highland Park, actually. He hunted along Woodward Ave, whereas Armstrong hunted on Michigan Ave. I think for both of these killers I've studied, it's definitely a combination. It's nature and nurture, and it's really hard to pin it on one thing or another. But to me, it's the million-dollar question. And so I always hope that I've just assembled enough facts for people to come to that conclusion on their own. Because to me, the psychological aspect is the most fascinating of all. And that's why sitting next to a guy on a plastic chair, almost touching his elbow and just chatting about whatever and feeling perfectly at ease in his presence. He's smiling, he's asking questions about me, he's being nice and engaging, and genuinely, not like the sinister, Ted Bundy who could smile at you and he had something going on in his head. But this guy was like, just honestly, it really was mind-blowing that the capability of the human brain. I guess that is what I say, the psychological aspect of all of it. I found the most fascinating of all. So I've enjoyed the research. So thank you very much.